This is my overview of my this is my overview of my night on February 13th, 2023 as a student on the Michigan State campus. There's a shooting, apparently, or 3 are dead and several more injured. I think it's 5. I was on campus when it started, and then it got closer and closer to me, and yeah, I'll run through everything that happened. So to start off, do not copy, do not redistribute. This is not for redistribution. I'm writing this on November 14th. I haven't gone to sleep yet, so it's 7:49 a.m. And if I'm a bit long spoken or can't remember, that's ironic, can't remember certain words, then cut me some slack. So all the time is happening in these or everything that's happening, the time that I gave, it's a little bit blurry. I didn't have my watch. I'm also on a phone break, or I have been on a phone break, so I've been using a landline instead of a cell phone. I was also inside for a lot of the time, or at least half, and then so I couldn't see the sun or the stars. And then all the times are in PM, so unless otherwise stated, they're in PM, but there's not even any places where I did AM, but okay. So I was at IM East playing basketball. I had an IM East or IM basketball game. It just finished halftime. We were in the second half when our game was stopped due to an active shooter. We were told that the shooter's location was at the Union. So from here, the Union is over here. So it's quite a bit. This is the whole of campus essentially. This is the whole of campus from this line right here to this line. So it was 3/4 of campus away. So that's about a mile or so, or 2 mile or mile and a half. So wasn't worried. This has happened before where there's a shooter. Usually it's just a scrap and it's taken care of. So we were told that nobody's allowed to leave. Few kids run for it, and the alarm starts going off for a brief minute, and then they stop the alarms and tell everyone else to stay, saying that you're safer indoors than you would be if you were out there. So the staff ring everyone around, or ring everyone up, and bring them into the gym. And there's racquetball courts attached directly to the gym, the basketball gym. So they told us to go inside those racquetball courts and sit tight. So what I started doing is I started taking off my jersey, getting my ID, taking note of what I had at my disposal. Yeah, I decided not to get inside one of those rooms because I feel like they were a death trap. And, if you were caught inside one of those, yeah. So because I didn't have my phone, I asked to borrow one of my peers' phones. His phone was at, I think, 17% or something. Just so I could call my mom and my dad and tell them that I'm all right in case they heard anything, because they knew I was going to be on campus. Usually my parents are pretty like, they don't really hear about news, that they don't really like Hawkeye the news, so I didn't really think that they would even hear about it, but I decided to call them regardless, which I'm glad I did. And yeah, so after that, we were waiting around for about like 10 minutes or something. And then we got an update that the shooter location changed, and from the Union right here, it was now Berkey Hall. So that's what, three buildings in between. It's not like a ton. It's still kind of like, oh yeah, they've got some distance between us. So I'm thinking we're good still. It's not something to like be super worried about. So then the staff come around when they hear that, and they try to get, they push like all the stragglers back in, or like get them into the racquetball rooms. I continue my decision to stay outside of them. I start talking to the workers and the staff there, so I can get an idea of what's happening, and just like have an update. One of them had like the police radar going, and like I said, I didn't have my phone, so I was pretty blind on this stuff. That was probably the most frustrating thing about not having my phone, was just that I wasn't able to listen to like outside stuff and hear where they are. But it is also cool because I did see, I got to piece together what was happening from my experience and where I was, um, and come up with my own ideas instead of listening to other people's ideas, and forming what I think happened around those. At the end of the day, there's a definitive thing that happened, and I think regardless of who you are, you're not going to have every single piece correct. Yeah, I don't think that's possible, but it's interesting to see how what I experienced differ from what I've read on the news or whatnot. Okay, moving forward. So then I also like encouraged the workers because they were seemingly stressed, and it's understandable that they were stressed. And not having dealt with this, and they're just students too. So I want to make sure that they were, from one student to another, doing a good job, and doing their best to protect the other younger classmen or lower classmen. Then we got another update, that the shooter location changed from Berkey Hall all the way to Snyder Phillips. And that was where it was kind of like, wow, okay, this guy's, or these people, or we didn't really know at that point, but this is pretty close. Like, I've gone here to eat before, I mean, I've gone like all these places before, so they're all familiar. But that was one of the places I used to go eat last year with one of my close friends, and that was kind of like, whoa, I know that that's like right down the street, because all it is just this road, and then you take a left, and you're at IM East. So that's what I was thinking. So I was thinking I need to get some information on, like, not only the building, the surrounding building, but also just the area of campus as a whole, like where the cops are, like where the police are, what's like barricaded, what's not. Obviously, that information is kind of difficult to get in such a situation, but yeah. So the staff told me about all the entrances that could be used, and they were both inside this hallway right here. So if I zoom in, let's see if I can go like this. So this is the front entrance right here. And then these are basically, okay, this is the front entrance right here. And then this hallway goes all the way back to here. And then on the left side, these are all just like offices or stretching rooms or yoga rooms or whatever. This area right here is the fitness, like lifting weights. And then these are the racquetball rooms. And then this is the gym itself. So this hallway, there's two, I think there's actually three entrances, if I'm not mistaken. One right here, and then one right here, and one right here. I could be wrong about this one though. But so I was sitting right around here, or I'll get to that part in a bit, but I just had them tell me about those entrances and making sure that I knew where all the entrances were. At this point, the lights got shut off and stayed off because he was getting closer, and people were starting to like kind of freak out. I think that's not a bad idea. You know, it can make people calmer. I don't know. It can also create a lot of panic. At that point, it didn't create a lot of panic, which was really good. So I decided to sit inside this hallway and watch duty. I wasn't in line of sight, but in case I heard someone break glass or shoot or break a lock or something, I would have heard it. Because down here it's just two sets of two doors, and I don't think it's bulletproof glass. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but they could have just gotten in pretty easily. So I was sitting there for about 5 minutes, and then one of the workers came in and told me that they had decided to barricade the doors, so it's best that I get inside the gym. So now I'm from in here, I'm back in here. They say, or they start moving some stuff, but it was really only cardboard, tables and a fan. It wasn't a ton of heavy stuff. Wouldn't really hold someone back very much, but we didn't really have anything else at the time. So I started helping moving the table. This way is north, south. Everyone, or someone yelled that the shooter was inside. So everyone from these two racquetball rooms started running out of this door. And it was pretty chaotic for a second. They were pouring out. And then as soon as the door opened, the alarm started blaring. So what I ended up doing is I was already over here to begin with, and there's this big curtain in the middle right here. So I ended up standing on the edge of the curtain and looking at this angle to the hallway where the two entrances are, to see if I could catch a glimpse of the shooter, if they were inside, or if they were even inside, because I never heard any breakage of glass or any firings or anything. So that led me to believe that the shooter hadn't even entered the room. So then I decided it wouldn't be. So I was there for I was right here for probably about a minute and a half or 2 minutes. And then I was like, okay, this probably isn't the best place to sit or be, because if I stay inside for too long, I might like run the risk of being falsely identified as the shooter coming out. So at that point, I head for the exit right here, and I think that at that point, I think I'm the last one. So then from here, I'm exiting this room right now, and I see all of my peers right about here, and like all spread out around here area. So they were running this way, and running for the hills basically. We weren't really informed like where to go or whatever. So at 9:08, I head for the parking garage. This parking garage right here. It's right adjacent, and there's an entrance right here. Keep in mind there are 4 exits if you're on top of the parking garage. You can either go down this stairwell, down this spirally loop, down this stairwell, or you can go through, run through the actual, like, you know, parking garage things themselves, or like the ramps themselves, whatever. But so I was in the first floor at this point, and there's this Jeep that like is like screeching its wheels, flying super fast. I tried to like kind of motion to like slow down, because they might hurt themselves or hurt someone else if they're like gonna crash. At that point, it's like you're putting yourself in more danger in crashing than you know, than the overall thing that's happening. They briefly slowed down, which was good, I think, and asked me if I needed a ride. I said that I'm all set, because my car was parked right like there, basically. So I walked past my car, actually, and I start heading upstairs to the like using the staircase in the southwest corner. So that is this corner right here. So I start climbing up this stairwell. I met with a few of my peers that were in the gym with me. They disagreed that the roof was a good spot. That's okay. I said, suit yourself, and I moved on. Personally, I can't be responsible for the decision someone makes in a situation like this. I'm not trained, so I just like will give my recommendation and then move on. And I pray that they're not going to have any harm done to them. So then around 9:10, I reach the top of the parking structure. I see a car over in the east or northwestern edge, and it has its headlights on, like blasting kind of like over this wall almost. So I go over there and I'm like, hey, it might be a good idea to turn your headlights off. They end up doing so, and then I walk over to the northeastern edge right over here. Oh, this is like glitched. Okay, so then I head over to this edge right here, and peer over the ledge. I'm peering over this edge for probably about 4 minutes or so, and then at that point, a bunch of police cars pull up to the front of IM East, which along this road right here, on East Shaw Lane. there was a state trooper car that pulled up right here, and he had a few team members. He also had a helmet and some night vision goggles with an M4 variant, I think. And then there was another team that came up and joined forces with the state trooper, and then 3 specific police officers or other police officers were kind of standing right out here. To me, it looked like these 3 police officers were the ones in the photo that was circulating, saying that, like, oh, these are the shooters or whatever. I think that photo was mistaken for what it actually was. I think we all know that now, but yeah. So I end up yelling down and inform one officer that I'm up there, so I'm still right here, and there's a group of them right here walking over here to the back entrance. I yelled that I'm there. I told him that they might want to send someone up there to get a few people, so they have like a better vantage point, because from this parking garage you can see like all of this. You can see like all of this. You can see like down here. You can see like all of this, and nothing really past like in between here. But then you can see all of this too. And then you can like, you know, it starts getting like harder to see things around out here. But yeah, you can see a lot from this parking structure, and I thought it was, a good idea for them to have someone up here. I also told them that I had my backpack, my basketball, and another item. The team, the state trooper team, goes in the back door to clear the building, and because at this point they still believed that there was someone inside there, or the shooter was still inside there, which they ended up like freeing 40 or so more students from inside the building, and they too ran towards the over here towards the vet college. At this point, the IM East Gym building was cleared without a trace of the shooter. So the police end up regrouping right around here, and then they head back to the cars over on Shaw Lane. As they were like getting ready to leave, I yelled down to the state trooper again, and basically asked for an update and what like they thought I should do, and they said to keep an eye and ear out and stay put. They said that they had told me that the IM East was clear, and yeah. So then, and the officer right next to him had asked me how long I was up there, and I said about 8 minutes. So I think that they're in there for about 3 minutes. The police at that point get a wrong tip that he was more westward. So I saw all these police cars right here just like start flying back this way, like going somewhere over here. I can't see over here, but I just saw them going this way. And to me, I mean, it doesn't really make sense because he's going this way. It would, and they didn't really leave like people in the area. I feel like kind of like the whole fleet just like turns around and goes the opposite way. and I could see, like a couple squad cars, but I feel like having the whole fleet go there is, um, I don't know. So there was probably about 20 to 25 police cars. There was a lot of police cars. And so I wait around. I'm still on top of the parking structure. And at this point, I'm sitting here and I can see here. So I can see right over there. From here, I can see here. I can see that there's about 8 officers with their rifles in their hands and some lights, grouping up outside of acres. And it's a bit of a far distance for the OIs, but I gathered or positioned outside that they were. Oh, that's anyway. I gathered that they were positioning themselves or getting ready to enter into acres, and then they evacuated some. Or I gathered that they were going to enter acres and evacuate some of the common areas, because like the dorms didn't really make sense, to like sweep the floor. I don't know at that point, but uh, the kids ended up coming out of the common areas and in groups of. There's I think like 3 groups, 2 large ones and 1 small one. Okay. The students who are now displaced outside of their dorm were standing near the street, so they're standing like right here, and the entrance to the dorm is right here. So if you go look at this, they were standing right here, and then the entrance is right here. So they were like, and there's an entrance right here too. So they were really close to the place still, or their dormitory. So now they started running, or they were like, "What do we do?" And then the officers just told them to keep running. So they all started running across this field towards IM East. So right around here, they started running. And when they got to around here, I called down and I said, the parking garage was clear. I wasn't necessarily saying that they should go in the parking garage or not go in the parking garage, but I was telling them it was clear. And yeah, I felt safe there, so I wasn't worrying them against or for it. I was just stating a fact of what was. So yeah, at this point I couldn't really see. Oh, some of the students I saw running up like didn't even have shoes on, or one of the students didn't have shoes on. A few more like had like one or one, not yeah. At this point I couldn't see the officers anymore, so I assumed that they were inside. And then more police cars started showing up and stuff. I saw a SWAT van drive down here and turn over into here. But then they just kept driving. I don't know where they went because IM East blocks it after that. But so then the first group comes up to the top. Then I start talking to them, asking if anyone needs medical attention. Everyone seemed to be fine. So then I start asking a couple of the students questions about what happened, to what situation the situation looked like. This was kind of what I was told. All the students were arriving in the parking, or all the students that were arriving in the parking structure were all inside the Acres Dining Hall when they were told an active shooter was on campus. They proceeded to barricade the door and stay there. After a bit, they heard a few distant gunshots, which then prompted them, not sure by police or from fear, I think it was fear, to make haste for the exit. This is when they were met by officers outside of the building and simply told to run. Distant, only one person said distant. The other 3 to 4 just said they heard gunshots. Also, another note to that is the person who said distant was an older man who seemed to have had a rougher past / more experience in dangerous situations. So I don't think that he was inside of the cafeteria. I think all the kids were in the cafeteria, and then they heard gunshots, and at that point, that's when they started freaking out and ran. So I went around talking to the students in the parking garage, probably about 50 or so students. I didn't talk to 50, but there were probably around 50 or so students, and there were no armed or medical personnel there. Outside of the IM East exit, there was a shoe, just a singular shoe. So I went and grabbed that and gave it to the kid who didn't have any shoes so that he could at least hobble on one foot and not get frostbitten or whatever. At about 9:46, I went to Shaw Lane where there were 3 ambulances. So at this point, I had walked downstairs and I had walked through this, like, there's a path right here. I walked through this path and there was 3 ambulances parked right here, and then there was also a news crew right here too. I asked if they knew of any place where 50 students could go inside, so as to not be out in the open and cold. They basically just said they had no idea and they didn't know who else to talk to regarding an answer for that. So that was kind of a bummer. So then I went back, and then that's when I decided to get a head count, as that would be the best way to spend my time, when a group of kids started walking back towards Acres. So they started walking back the way that they came. So they started walking back this way, because now at this point there's a bunch of police cars, like I said earlier, and through the field with their hands in the air, where police were stationed. I met a guy who's a worker at Acres. This was the older guy that I talked about up here that said distant gunshot. At that point, a large portion, about 90% of the remaining group, all went to the northeast corner. So this straight ahead is north, so they went to this corner on the first floor, and where they left to go stand in the street by the ambulances. So then they made that same trip that I had made, to go stand over here in the open. Yeah. I thought to myself that my job was done, because they're now in the hands of the ambulance people, and I think there was an officer now. Because that sentence is a little ahead of itself. I offered to give the guy who I just met a ride, as he wasn't living on campus. He lived instead about like 15 minutes away by car, and the buses were shut down. So just as we were walking to my car, so we walked over there too. Sorry, back. Okay. So just as he and I were walking to my car, there was a group of officers who approached us and said that we needed to go to the ambulance area over here. I told them I was about to leave with my car, and one officer said that the streets are blocked and that I won't be able to make it out of the campus. I followed the orders and I walked with my new friend over to the ambulance area to try and get a network signal. We, on his phone, we walked up close to one of the dorm buildings to Owen Hall right here, and we still couldn't get it. So then he was like, I'll talk to a police officer instead. So at that point I said goodbye, and I went on my way back to the parking garage. So I walked back here to get my car, and before I just got in my car and left, I went all the way down here to this road as there was some cars driving down every once in a while, and I stopped one of them and I said, hey, is the way that you just came from open and clear? And I was told that there was no blockade. So then I walked back into got my car and then drove off. And so then I saw no blockades all the way to here. And then as I was driving down Hagedorn, I saw that this intersection right here was blockaded on Grand River and Hagedorn right here. But it wasn't blockaded enough to like not be able to drive it. It was only one police car in the right lane. Then when I got home, I spoke to my family and told them I'm safe. The only time they'd heard from me was when I had called from my peer's phone. So this is the whole path that I'm aware of that the shooter had walked. So it started in the Union, then it went to Berkey, and then Snyder Phillips, and then apparently IM East. I don't think it went to IM East. I think he might have went past it. I would bet money that he didn't go inside IM East, but who knows, maybe I'm completely wrong too. Then to Hubbard Hall, and then to Acres. And then at that point, the shooter walked all the way up here, right to here, where he ended up committing suicide. He shot himself. So, a few takeaways that I had kind of thought about and noticed while I was experiencing this. I'm sure, I might come up with a few more, and if you have any ideas of how, from my story and from what you've experienced, how we can better handle a situation like this, I'd love to hear it. But our police force should have the capability of stopping something like this within the first, maybe second building. So within the Union, I think that the area should have been secured, and if not the Union, then definitely Berkey Hall. I think it should have definitely stopped at Berkey Hall. I don't think that it should have gotten any farther than that. I don't understand how the shooter walked so far. That's pretty scary. But another thing is false tips and misinformation needs to be halted and filtered, especially in situations like this. The fact that the fleet of police cars, as I had said, went the opposite way, just like cannot happen. Like it's that's just, time that the shooter has more time that the shooter has on the campus, and more potential lives at stake. And I know that overall it's not the police officers who are risking their lives fault, but I'll get into that in a little bit too. But blockade the bridges. Another thing was to blockade the bridges. Cut the campus in half. So if you look here, this is the campus, right? So you see the Red Cedar River runs all along this top part of the campus. This is like the older part of campus. This is where the first three like areas of shooting happened, or first three areas of interest. If you put blockades on the bridges, you see these bridges, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bridges in the Michigan State campus's reach. This one's technically not in Michigan State's campus. Technically, this is all, or this like cutout is technically this cutout is just normal people land or whatever. I don't know what you anyway, they could have shut down these bridges and pushed the perpetrator into the river and then stopped them there, and that would have stopped all of this down here from happening. And this one, they wouldn't have been able to cross this, and yeah, they could have cornered them right here and kept pushing them farther and farther down. Grand River is a pretty wide road. You're not really going to be able to run across it without, people seeing you. So I do think that they could have done that in order to help, stop the perpetrator. But yeah, each of these bridges I think should be able to be blocked off like very quickly and methodically. That would stop a lot of flow from happening, and could save lives for sure. Another thing was that they didn't have any open or cleared buildings / receiving personnel for students being displaced. I would have liked to see at least 1 or 2 officers at the parking garage with me, receiving all the students that were being sent out. I don't know how to deal with these people. I'm just a student too. Like, this is like a lot for everyone, and obviously I'm going to do my best at trying to be a leader in situations like that. But I'm not trained in that. And so maybe if we would have had like an open, like, oh, Wharton Hall is open, like we've already cleared that, all the doors are already locked, let's unlock one of the doors and let's get some kids in there, in what seems to be a safe building, and also check them for medical emergencies or anything. Another thing was it took nearly an hour to get a helicopter in the air, which I was talking to my friend, maybe it was they were getting a shooter on the aircraft. I think it's, yeah, or the helicopter. But I think at least just having eyes in the air in the first place would be so beneficial to the manhunt. Like, so beneficial. And so I think that that's something that should be sort of like improved, and a quicker response time with a helicopter. Overall, it seemed very disorganized and chaotic. The fault lies not with the officers risking their lives, but with our organizational and information systems. Um, there's just not a lot of like communication happening, it seemed like, and not really anything like planned out and like, okay, if this happens here, this should happen. And I know it's hard to like plan for every certain little thing, but having like, you could block off like the whole neighborhood and be like, these zones are safe. Um, Go here if anything happens in East neighborhood. Um, they are the systems, the organizational and information systems are not fulfilling the needs of the community, which is a clear indication that they need to be rethought and transformed. And yeah, I think that's everything. Um, Together we will do better. Um, and yeah, I mean, I would like to work on something to like